What is software engineering? Software engineering, you see the very first topic, guys, here. Introduction to software engineering, the evolving role of software. You see here, I gave you the application of systematic discipline, quantifiable approach to development, operation, and maintenance of software. I gave you the definition, then I showed you like what are the, who should adopt it, like systematic and organized approach to work, and you use appropriate tools and techniques, the development constraints and all. And next, coming to the, I gave you the definition. We discussed about definition parts. I discussed what is what. I gave you the definition of engineering. I distinguished between software engineering and engineering. And then coming to the evolving role. Coming to evolving role, I showed you software is a product and software is a medium of delivering a product. Then when it comes to evolving role, you can use software as both ways. Software is used as product. Software can also be used as medium for delivering a product. So how do you do that? Control other programs. Operating system, that's wherein the server comes into the picture. One server controls multiple systems. This is how you act as a medium for delivering a product. And then affects the communications. Again, the same thing, the networking software. The communication, right from source to destination, how the message is being sent. So the message has to be received properly from the end user to the client, or from the end user to the business manager. So this is how the communication has to be effective, and then helps build other software. Yeah, you can use one software to build another software. Software tools, something called as Tally. Tally is something which I have discussed about before. Use Tally to create new. You develop. See, when you work on tools, you can use tools to create the dashboards, to develop to download the forms, to recreate the forms, to print the forms and stuff like that. Right. So this is the evolving role of software. It's not that this is just like a. I won't ask you like questions on pages and pages on this topic. And then coming to changing nature of software, this we have actually discussed clearly, like how the software is going to be volatile, right? The very first thing was system software, which I have discussed. System software is a collection of programs written to service other programs, characterized by heavy interaction with computers, computer hardware, heavy usage with multiple users, concurrent operation. Examples: compiler, operating system, driver. Compilers, operating system, and drivers are considered as system software, right? So, and then coming to the application software. Application consists of standalone programs that follow specific. These are only related to specific business needs. So, we are not focused on the business needs. What are the examples for the business needs? See, you create a website. You create a specific login page for making the payment, or maybe a banking application. It would ask you to enter the user ID and password, and then create an authentication there. And that is only for specific business needs, right? It's not for your purpose. It's for the banking purposes, right? And then coming to the application software, it is to control the business function. The business function is, what is the business function? The business function is, it's you who have to make the transactions, the online transactions, right? The net banking. The net banking is the best example for the application software. And then coming to engineering scientific software. So you see here, I gave you an example for like what all are the engineering and scientific purposes. The best example is like, see, you predict. You look at the astronomy, predict a volcano logo, like prediction of the rainfall, right? Like you map the data from region to region, right? And based on the clouds and based on the waves of oceans as well, you try to predict the rainfall and all. For that you can use the dashboard for that as well. but that's a different story. I mean, again, you have to map the areas, you have to bring in the world map and then try to connect the India map and all. Try to connect the areas, like in which state you are residing in, like when you're in Telangana, like you try to map the areas, and then you try to check where the waves are been passing on, like how the waves are, how the frequency of the waves are being. That's how you predict them. Then coming to that, this is sort of like engineering software. Usually for the weather reports and all, we use the engineering software. And I also gave you an example of how it's going to work when you're sort of like simulation, right? When you're, when somebody in a satellite can access, somebody using the system can access the person, can have direct access to somebody in a satellite, right? You can just go through how the things are going on, right? So that's how I can give an example of scientific software engineering, which I actually given before. And yeah, that's how I actually try to distinguish between these three. And then comes the embedded software. What is an embedded software? It says in read-only memory and it's used to control products. You see here, embedded is something. See, you say here clearly says it says that there is no, you cannot modify it. There is only one ROM in a system, right? Which is going to be fixed. So you can't make changes, right? So you see here, just example what they give keypad controller microwave oven. What does the microwave oven do? Takes in the information, it acts accordingly, right? So this is a fixed system. It's only the fixed settings, air condition, fixed settings, increase temperature, decrease it, and stuff like that. Product line software designed to provide specific capabilities by use many customers. Product line software limited and specific marketplace. Best example what they gave is word processing, MS Word, MS Office, and all those. Because anybody can use any number of times. You have got your own MS Word document. I got my own MS Word document. I do my documentation by my own. You do you do it on your own. So it's all going to be like personal stuff. Okay. So and then comes the web applications. Web app can be little more set to linked hypertext files. Web application, as you all know, I don't have to give more clear picture about it because you have got one whole subject based on web applications, the HTML, right? Hypertext markup language. So I don't have to give you clear. You see here, it evolves in software computing, and that not only provides standalone functions, also integrated and corporate database. And so there's going to be a whole bunch of database which you want to be displayed in each and every web page. So that's all. It's all dependent on how you are going to construct your own website. And then comes your artificial intelligence software. AI software makes use of non-numerical algorithms to solve complex problems that are not amenable to computation or straightforward analysis. See, complex problems in the sense, something which a human can do, and then you try to use, and then you try to go for the artificial intelligence softwares, which is beyond our imagination. Like what the robotics do, you imbibe all the operations in a system, and then you make sure that the system does. A system has its own functionalities, right? And then you actually have to use all those functionalities for your benefit, right? And that's how the robotics work, right? And expert systems, game playing is even game playing is beyond your imagination, right? So yeah, there are even levels. So you keep on passing on the levels, and there are even some games which doesn't stop at a single level. It keeps on going. You keep on playing forever, right? That is how the game playing is. And yeah, this actually I actually gave you clear picture about how I distinguish between all the changing nature of software before. And the next topic which I've discussed was like customer myths. You see here, when you look into the syllabus, I've gone through the evolving role, changing nature, and then the software myths. Myths I've actually discussed. What's a myth? Myth is something which we believe is going to happen, right? Myth is something which is the best one which I can use is which is the perception of human being is called as a myth, right? So it all depends from person to person. So you see here the very first myth. If we get behind the schedule, we can add. Yeah, I think we were actually the myth one. We already have a book that is full of standards and all these things I have actually discussed. And I don't want to again take time on it. And then coming to the myth 2, if we are behind schedule, we can add more programmers. They think they can add more program in the later part, but that doesn't happen. That is actually a myth. Again, if I decide to outsource the software project third party, I can just relax and let that firm build it. Yeah, giving everything to third party doesn't work. And that's how it says. That's what this myth says. And also these are all the prime managers myths. And next, coming to the customer myths. Before, what I've discussed was the management side of myth. This is the customer side of myth. What the customer thinks. What's the perception of the customer? The very first perception is he feels that all the objectives is sufficient to begin writing programs. We can fill in the details later. So you always think like just giving some part of information to the to the programmers, it's going to serve its purpose, but that's not. And see here, poor front definition is a major cause of failure of software efforts. Everything has to be clear and lucid, as well as even for large projects, the BRDs and FRDs are going to go like 20-30 pages of BRD and FRD. That much of information they will load up into just a document, a simple MS Word document. Okay. So that's how it works. And then comes to project requirements continuously change, but change can be easily accommodated because software is flexible. No software. You see here, they will think the project will continuously change, but change can be easily accommodated because they will just think software is flexible. They can do whatever they want, but there are actual limitations for each and everything, which you know. And you see here, definition cost to change, definition development. Right from definition, it was only 1x, and development is 1.46x, and after release, you see here the breakage. So it keeps on, gets affected from cost to change. And then now comes the practitioner myth. Practitioner is somebody who is a end user or a client. So what he thinks is like once you write the program, get it work, our job is done. No, the sooner you begin writing code, the longer it takes to get off a turn. So what they're saying is like you have to take some time. You have to spend more time while you're writing the code, because you will be asked to ask about the information in the later part. Because once you are done with your code, that's not going to be end of it, right? So it's always better to sit with your programmers and make sure that they're following all the instructions in the BRDs and FRDs, and also read the SRS document carefully, and that's how they will proceed into it. Myth 2, until I get the program running, I have no way of assessing its quality. Yeah, this is also what they feel. You see here, it's not about program running. A program gets run. You can make a program run even without adding the features in it, right? So the most important thing is like actually have to look into the quality. Quality is what you have to be particular about, right? So, and then coming to myth 3, the only developer work product for a successful project is working program. That's what they actually they always think that working program will work for them, but no. Working is only one part of software that includes many elements. Document provides a foundation for successful engineering and more important guidance for software support. Software engineering will make us create voluminous and unnecessary document will immediately slow us down. They will also think that unnecessary documentation and voluminous unnecessary document will invest slow us down. Because when you keep on adding pages and pages of data in those BRDs, they feel like it takes more time and it will also cost them a little more, and it will drain them a little bit. But no, that will not be the case, because the more clear you are in the beginning, the more the more easier you feel in the end, right? So that's how it is. FIFO, first come, first service, first come, first out. And generic view of process. And then we discussed about layered process. How the layered process is going to focus on quality, process. There are only 4 points in layered technology: methods and tools. So what are methods? It provides technical how to build a software. Methods encompass broad array of tasks that include requirement analysis, design, program construction, testing, and support. Analysis, design, coding, and testing. Again, the same thing for methods. And then tools. Tools, you know what the tools are. Something, anything which is automated is a tool, right? So when tools are integrated, so information created by one tool can be used by another. Yeah, absolutely. Even tools can be integrated, right? And if you're building a bigger system, I mean, see, one system added to another system is gonna increase the capacity, is gonna increase the final configuration, right? And that's how it works. And quality focus, quality TQM, total quality management, Six Sigma. Six Sigma is something, I mean, in every organization there is something called a Six Sigma. Six Sigma is little bit more like again a quality standard, sort of like ISO, because for each and every level, even there are levels in Sigma, like green belted, red belted, black belted, and all those things. So best looking at all these factors, they will assign one sort of a belt for an organization. And yeah, that is how the quality assessment is going to be done. And the bedrock that supports software engineering is quality focus. Yeah, that's absolutely quality focus, because quality, they give a lot of preference for quality and testing in any project. Process, it is foundation layer for software engineering. Define framework for set of key process, KRS, key process, KRS, KPS, key performance areas, key process areas. For effectively manage and deliver software process. See, the process defines the task to be performed in the order in which they are to be performed. See, process defines the task to be performed and also the order in which they are to be performed. Like, how do you want the process to be in? Like, you want which process to come out first? Like, again, FIFO and LIFO. You plan out, you can schedule it out according to your needs, right? It's pretty much about layer technology, which I've actually, yeah, even layer technology is a short stuff, not a big topic. And then layer technology, we finished process framework. We can, you see here, this I have been telling you time and again the same thing, right? The communication, planning, modeling, construction, and deployment. When are we using these processes? In the models, right? Models like waterfall model, rapid application development model, iteration model, incremental model, and all those. So I was trying to refer communication, planning, modeling, construction, deployment for each and everything, right? For every time I discuss them. So what are these? These are the generic process framework activities. Communication, planning have got its own stuff. Modeling is something which we discussed in clear when we were considering the second chapter. When we were going into the second chapter, therein we discussed a lot about the modeling, right? And then coming to construction is the code generation. Can also be called as development. Can also be called as coding. And then comes to deployment. Delivering the deployment is going to be final stage, wherein you deploy your constructed project. And then so you see here, I discussed evolving role. Next comes to changing nature. Software myths are done. Software in generic wave of process, software engineering, layer technology, analysis, design, coding, and testing, which I've actually told about before. Process framework, again the same thing, right? The CMMI model. What is capability maturity model integration? CMMI. See here. there are levels in CMMI, right? Which we have actually discussed about. What is CMMI? Capability maturity model integration. When I was going through CMMI, I discussed about all the levels, right? It goes from level 1 to level 5. What is level 0? It's an incomplete phase. You see here, and level 1 is a performed phase. A little performed. But they are only going according to the goals, specific goals. And then comes the manage. All level 1 criteria has to be, the very first thing is level 1, this has to be performed. In addition to something out of level 1, what they do, they actually want to bring in the stakeholders, get involved in it. They actually are given the work tasks and products which are to be monitored, controlled. And also, it's more like there is little bit of centralization, not more. And again, coming to the defined level 3, or level 2 has been achieved. And then comes to, in addition to it, management and engineering processes are documented. Standardized integrated into organization-wide software. So level 2 has been achieved. And then in addition to it, who is getting involved? The management. The management engineering processes are being documented. And also they're having a particular, like, everything is being, again, everything is being put down into files. So everything is being filed up again. Level 3, and then coming to level 4 is quantitative management. So what is added to level 3? Level 3, you're bringing in the management for all the decision making, strategic decision making, giving inputs and outputs. And level 4, quantitative manage. All level 3 criteria has to be satisfied. That is the very first phase, the very first important thing. And then comes the software process and products at one. So you are actually using the metrics here. Coming to the control, using the detailed measures and assessment. So this is actually been, I mean, you are actually using the measures and assessment for controlling. So this is how this level is going to be. This is completely quantitative managed and then optimized. Again, the level 4, it has to be quantitatively managed, as well as there is something called as process improvement. You will be given, you will be taking the feedback for the processes, and if you just feel like something else has to be done for the upgradation of the product, then you go for process improvement. That is called as optimized. This is the optimized level. These are actually very easy, guys. I mean, when you refer these, and hopefully, probably, I mean, I might ask you for a long question for CMM. Very easy, guys. I mean, you can actually elaborate each and everything just by giving examples. Just consider just take a topic, just take a business issue, and then try to keep on elaborating. Like, you see here, these are all the phases, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just write them down, like you get the, I mean, see, very easy, guys, you get the maximum marks out of it. You don't have to spend a lot of time as well. I mean, this is something which is probably, I mean, you can score maximum out of it, guys, right? And that's what I actually want to tell you, guys. This software engineering is wherein you can use the subject for increasing your percentage, guys. I mean, this is completely scoring subject. So what I want everybody of you guys is to not leave this subject, because this is the best opportunity for you guys to, I mean, to, like, if you're falling short of some marks or if you need some marks, software engineering, there is no other subject like software engineering, guys. Because you can score a lot in it. The topics are not going to be, I mean, that complicated. The topics are going to be, yeah, I mean, when we come, I mean, yeah, the very first 2 units are going to be easier. Deeper into 3rd and 4th chapters, yes, I mean, they get little complicated. You'll be having more chance to score high. That's what I was trying to say. Okay, and coming to the software process model. Yeah, this is a very vast topic which I actually discussed about. Like, very first thing is like waterfall model, like how the things get controlled, like from communication, planning, modeling, construction, and deployment. And why people were not opposing to the waterfall model, because the limitations were the real projects rarely follow the sequential flow that they, because for each and everything you got to go to the communication, again the planning, modeling, you get stuck here. Again, go to the communication planning, modeling, construction, deployment. Construction gets stuck. Again, go to the same. Like you cannot. If something happens in the coding part, like if you get any bugging error, you don't want to like manipulate it right away and then just send it off to send it off the end user. No, you again have to go to the communication. Everything has to be accessed here. Planning again, modeling. Something called as time taking, and moreover, it's cost consuming as well. And that's what the limitations say. I don't want to refer each and everything. I would just this is more like else. I just illustrated. And coming to the incremental model, I discussed about incremental model, like how the incremental happens, like right from level 1 to level 3 development of like you pass on stages, the first increment, second and third, and these things. And you see here again the same thing. CPMCD incremental is particularly used when staffing is unavailable for complete implementation. So what they work is like they work based on the project basis. Like they call in the staff, and then there is something called as temporary workers, right? Like you call in your staff based on your requirement. So if you feel like more and more employees are being needed, you keep on adding your staff, right? That's how you keep on doing the implementation. That's how you increment your staff, and that's how you increment your projects, right? You increment your workforce, right? And the workload as well. If workload is more, you call in your staff. You don't want your staff to be sitting on the bench, right? So that's how you do in incrementing. And coming to the content actually, touch. Yeah, what kind of incremental? The RAD is also a kind of incremental model, wherein you do things immediately, like what you do in RAD model. You see here, the teams get separated. Like you see here, modeling, construction, communication, planning, and deployment. Communication, planning, modeling, construction, deployment. You see here, there are 3 teams. Modeling and construction, you actually segregate the things into teams. Segregate the functionalities into teams. Modeling, construction, they are one team. Change happens. These teams, they are actually directly connected to the deployment team here, right? So they immediately make the change and they actually send the data to the deployment. You see here, team 2, they immediately make the modifications and send the data to deployment. And then again, so it's only the teams are only getting associated with the final feedback. You see here, what does communication planning do? They take in the inputs, right? They are only working on the inputs. They just send the data to the teams. The teams, they keep on working. If the workload is high, what they do, they share the data, right? They share the load. So see, you got 3 parts. Like you break the parts into pies, right? Team 1 got their own pie, 2, 3, everybody gets their own share. And all the data goes into the deployment, and this is how the RAD is going to function like. Again, this has got its own limitations because everything can't come in everything. The communication and planning, there is something called as direct access of teams to deployment. Again, you sort of like don't want to expose your teams, your modeling and construction teams to the deployment, right? Because again, there is something called as encapsulation, which might come into the picture again. You don't want to do it again and again, right? So you only wanted to display the needed information. And also you don't want to show what all is going on in the backdrop, right? That is also a sort of a limitation. That's why most of people don't want to consider an RAD model. And that's why they're actually jumping into the spiral model. And sorry, that's why they're actually jumping into the what you call the sprints and all. And coming to the evolutionary product process models, you see here communication, again the same thing. Evolution is something which keeps on changing, guys. in each and every stage, there is some sort of evolution. So this is like a, you see here, this is like a circular notation, like planning, designing. So this keeps on revolving. Again, communication, planning, design, prototyping, developing, feedback. Think evolutionary. Yeah, you see here spiral. It's a never-ending thing. How the spider web is going to be, right? Keeps on moving in, right? So when it starts from planning. Again, the whole thing keeps on evolving around. Spiral. You see here, it provides the potential for rapid development for increasingly more complete versions of software. And again, it says drawbacks. Spiral model is not a panacea. It may be difficult to convince customers that the evolutionary approach is controllable. It demands considerable risk assessment expertise to rely on its expertise for success. Its major risk is not uncoveted, and managed problems will undoubtedly occur. So even for this model, what happens is, like, when the client gets exposed to the business manager in the initial part, again the same thing. The requirements are not being taken and being lucid, and you see, again the same thing. You see here, spiral, it little bit replicates. They say a little bit replicates the waterfall model. The same thing, right? Again. Yeah, and let us go back again. When I go back and forth, yeah, let me just, what all are the, I mean, I'm actually giving you, this is not going deeper into the subjects, because I actually gave you clear understanding on each and every topic before. When it comes to chapter 1, and you see, just hang on for a second, guys. Yeah, you see here, you see the topics. What are the topics which I've actually discussed? Evolving role of software, yes. Changing nature, yes. Software myths, yes. Software engineering, layer technology, process framework, yes. CMMI model, yes. Process patterns. There is something called as process patterns, guys. See, process patterns and process assessments, they are actually very short topics, I mean, which I'm actually going to, if time persists. Yeah. What's the time? 11:30. Okay. Yeah. See, guys. I mean, yeah. Okay, I will come back to it again. Yeah. Personal and team process models. Yeah, we have actually discussed about waterfall. Yes. Incremental process. Yes. Evolutionary model. Yes. Unified process. No. This unified process probably once after you are done. I mean, probably. Maybe in the not in the next class, probably maybe after after your vacations we can take this unified process. But this process patterns and process assessment, they are very small topics, guys. Even if when I ask you, I might ask you for shorter stuff, and I'll just cover it up right. I mean quickly as possible now. You see here, so this is how the process unit 1 is, and let me just take in the topic, the process patterns. Yeah. Simple, guys. So when you say something called as patterns, is everybody with me, guys? Is everybody able to see the screen? Last 10 minutes, guys. Last 10 minutes and we are all done. 5 minutes each. Is everybody able to see the screen, guys? Okay, good. Yeah, there you go, guys. Okay, yes, okay. Good. You see here, simple thing, guys. When you okay, good, guys. Okay, stop chatting, guys. Stop writing in the chat, guys. Okay, yeah. Coming to the basic control patterns, there are actually a lot of patterns, guys. But I'm actually only referring for 3 basic control patterns. The one is sequence. Next coming on is parallel split. And next is synchronization. So what are these? I will elaborate each and everything. You see here sequence. You see here in this sequence pattern is the most basic workflow pattern. It is required when there is dependency between 2 or more tasks, so that one task cannot be started beforehand. You see here, after A is been done, then it falls into B. After B is done, then it falls into C. An activity is a workflow process and is enabled after completion of another act. So just before finishing of A, you don't want to touch the B part. Just before finishing of B, you don't want to touch the C part. So A is leading to B, B is leading to C. This is how the sequence is. You know how the sequence is, right? So you see here, even you use them for routing and serial routing. I don't want to touch these because this is something related to networking. Probably, yeah, I can give you some examples which is not related to networking right now. So you see here, activity send bill is executed after the execution of activity send goods. An insurance claim is evaluated after the client file is received. You see here, when somebody claims for an insurance, so I'm actually giving a basic example. When somebody claims for insurance, so what is the insurance company going to do? It's going to start up the file. It's going to retrieve the file. It's going to open the file, right? And then once after opening the file, it's going to look into the data, what's in the file, right? And if there are any damage, like usually when the person is going to claim for insurance, when there is any accident or anything, or probably if there is any damage to his vehicle, then once his file has been retrieved, all the related information has been assessed and seen whether there is any damage, or like if there is any claim to be, if there is any need for any claim, then they'll go for access claim. So this is a step-by-step sequential process. So opening, accessing, and then generating. So this is basically a sequence. Pretty much easy, guys. And then parallel split. What is a parallel split? Parallel split is something which, again, I'll consider the same example when I'm giving you the example of parallel split. one activity is going to lead to multiple activities, right? So the very best example is A. A is giving rise to B and C. A is you are using AND function. Why are you using AND function? Because B and C is the aggregation of A, right? So A is leading to B and C. You see here the point in the workflow process is single thread. Single thread splits into multiple threads. So which can be executed in parallel, thus allowing activities to execute simultaneously in any order, right? And is splitting and parallel routing. You see here, when you come to the example, the same thing, execution of activity payment. For what is the first thing? Register the claim. To claim, you're taking it as A. Claim is leading to checking the insurance policies. Check what kind of policy is the person being allocated. I mean, is the person being allocated, and how much amount is being allocated. For say, if the damage claims are around like 2 lakh, if he falls under 2 lakh policy, you actually access the whole thing. Then you first of all you check for the policy, and then what you do, access the actual damage. Like everything falls into the same same module. Then you say yes, yeah. Then you're actually going to like consider the whole insurance, right? So that is how this parallel pattern is going to be, parallel pattern split. And then coming to synchronization. You see, synchronization like is also pretty much the same thing. What the biggest difference here is, the two processes are going to get like two processes are going to lead to a single process. Like A and B is again an amalgamation. A and B, when aggregated, it leads to C, right? A point in the workflow process where sub-process activities are actually, you see here, I don't see what is this. Okay, that's okay, no problem. Yeah, you see here, multiple parallel sub-processes lead to a single process. Multiple. A, B is leading to C. What is the synchronization? When two or more processes are being combined, and then there is a final execution. Like two or more processes are leading to a final output. Like 2 or 3 inputs leading to a final output. That is sort of like a synchronization, right? So there is the difference between synchronization is asynchronization is like when there is when there is a breakage. I mean, when there is a breakage in the process at any point of time, that is asynchronous. That is actually that is not needed right now at this point of time. Synchronization is that is what the synchronization is. Like multiple processes lead to a single multiple parallel sub-process lead to a single thread of control, right? And then giving the example again, the same thing is checking insurance policies, actual damage. You see here, you first what you're doing, that you are checking the insurance policies, and then you actually assessing the actual damage. So again, A and B, you're actually going through these processes, and then you're accessing the claim, right? So B and A leading to C, A and B leading to C, same thing, no big difference, right? So these are the three things which I actually wanted to consider when I'm asking about the control pattern: sequence, parallel split, as well as synchronization. Again, this is an easy stuff, guys. Okay. Yeah. And what else? I mean, when I'm actually, I was missing out in software assessments because this is pretty much like software engineering, process assessment, process patterns. Actually, this is being referred process assessment. Even this is also sort of like, usually software assessment is being done by an auditor or a person who is been who's been assigned to, or even a manager for that matter, like anybody can do the software assessment. You see here, there are actually 3 kinds of assessment. Self-assessment. You see here, basically, if I want to give an example, sort of like, I mean, when there is something called a performance evaluation, right? Like if you ask the whole team to give the rating, like if I actually sell a product and ask all my customers to give the rating for the product, that is sort of like self-assessment. Actually, sorry, that's not the self. That is second-party assessment that has been done by the customer. That was my bad. Self-assessment is being done by the internal employees, right? So, for example, if I'm actually releasing a product and if I'm actually calling on my employees to use the product first and then give the feedback of the product, that's called a self-assessment, right? They give their own feedback, and based on all those feedbacks, I'm actually coming to a conclusion, final conclusion, just feeling that yeah, these are the pros and cons of these products, right? So that's the self-assessment. Coming to second-party assessment, which I actually told before, that has been done by the customer. I mean, actually, the customers, when they purchase the products, then they give their own feedback, right? Saying good, bad, I mean, ugly, or like whatever they feel like. Yeah, if the performance is excellent, yes, excellent, and all those things, right? That is called as a second-party assessment. Like you actually taking the feedback of the end user, or sort of like customer, right? When your software is being sold out, and that's when you take the feedback. That is called a second-party assessment. Then comes third-party assessment. That is being done by the external party. You actually hire an external party for doing that, because I mean, you don't want directly to experiment on the customers, or if you don't want, if you feel like your own personnel might not give you relevant information, then you are going to hire a third party, right? And there are companies who do the third party assessment right now, even in the current day market, right? A supplier can also be a third party, right? They will verify all the features, all the configurations, and they will let you know, they'll give you final feedback, and based on which you can take your final decision or make the strategic decision making or strategic analysis, right? So that's pretty much about the software assessments. So this is also basically a small topic. So what I actually felt like, I mean, what I actually wanted to refer to is like, yeah, these are all the topics which have been covered in the unit 1. I actually felt like reviewing each and everything, because it would be easy when you're actually, I mean, once after you're done with your exams and once after you're done with your, preparation holidays and all, like you would be actually asked to write the midterm exams. I'm not sure when they would be conducted, but it would be easy for you guys when you actually refer to like all these topics and right from unit 1. And tomorrow, what I'm going to do is like, I'm going to take the charge of unit 2. And the same way I'm going to explain about how the topics are being covered. If at all any missing topics, I'm going to cover them up, and we can go on from further. And that's pretty much about today's class, guys. And okay, guys, and that's pretty much for today's class. And you guys can leave, and have a good day, guys.